for 11-year-old Gannon Stauch, who vanished 7 days ago from Colorado Springs.
I'm pleading, if anybody has any type of lead, put yourself in my situation.
I would never, ever hurt this child, and I know there's some questions out there.
Imagine how afraid Gannon is.
Hard to hear, but today we learned that Gannon was shot, stabbed, and had his skull fractured before he was found under a bridge in Florida weeks after he vanished.
Today I got the worst news and the best news. Obviously we know what the worst news is, but the best news is that justice will be served, and I'll make sure that justice is served, because my boy did not deserve any of this that has happened to him.
On January 27, 2020, 11-year-old Gannon Stauch disappeared from his home in Colorado Springs, Colorado. What followed was a massive search effort involving thousands of volunteers, law enforcement agencies, and community members, all hoping for the safe return of the young boy. But as the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Gannon's disappearance was no accident. This is the story of the disappearance of Gannon Stauch and the arrest of his stepmother, Letecia Stauch, for his murder. Join us as we explore the heartbreaking details of Gannon's abuse and murder and the efforts to bring his killer to justice. Gannon Stauch was a cheerful and outgoing 11-year-old boy who lived with his father, Al Stauch, and his stepmother, Leticia Stauch, in a suburban area of Colorado Springs, Colorado. Gannon's father, Al, is in the Colorado Army National Guard, and his mother, Landon Hyatt, lived in South Carolina. Landon and Al shared custody of Gannon. Leticia Stauch married Al in January 2015. She has a daughter, Harley, who was 17 at the time, from a previous relationship. Leticia's previous married name was Leticia Hunt, and her married name is Leticia Hardin. From January 25, 2020 to January 28, 2020, Gannon's father, Al, was deployed with the National Guard. On Monday, January 27, 2020, Gannon stayed home from school. According to Leticia, he'd been up most of the night before with a stomachache. Leticia called the school and had him excused for the day. Leticia texted Al and said she was going to stay home with Gannon for the day and that she would just make up an excuse for her work. Indeed, Leticia did come up with an excuse and told her employers that her stepdad was killed after being hit by a car and she wouldn't be able to make it in. And so Letecia Stauch's pattern of lying begins. Here's what we do know about that day on January 27, 2020. Gannon's little sister, Lana, was at school, and his stepsister, Harley, was at work. At 8:13 and 8:17 a.m., Leticia took photos of Gannon sleeping in his bed. Of importance is the Nintendo Switch that was lying next to him on the bed. To date, the Switch has never been found. We do not know why these photos were taken, but we can speculate, and these two photos would be detrimental to Leticia. At around 10:16 a.m., a neighbor's surveillance video captured what investigators believe to be Leticia and Gannon depart their residence in Al's Nissan Frontier. It's important to know that Stauch's home had an ADT security system, and there was no motion in the home from 10:12 a.m. to approximately 2:22 p.m. the same day. Additionally, Leticia left her phone at home that day. Her cell phone was locked at around 9:56 a.m., around 20 minutes before she is seen leaving the house, and not unlocked until 2:45 p.m. that same day. Leticia and Gannon drove about 30 minutes to a Petco, where Leticia is seen on surveillance camera, but Gannon is not. She checks out of the store at 11:22 a.m. From that time until 1:22 that afternoon, Leticia's whereabouts are unknown. However, she did return to the same store at 1:22 p.m. Interestingly enough, Gannon's dad, Al, texts Gannon around noon saying, "Hey, buddy," but this text went unanswered until 1:21. It's not known if it was Leticia that responded from inside the store or if it was truly Gannon that responded with, "Can I play Zelda at least?" The question has to be asked if it was Leticia responding, because the significant event occurred on Gannon's phone around 1:43 p.m., just shortly after Leticia left the Petco. an internet search on his phone for, "Can my parent find my cell phone if it's off?" It's believed that Leticia may have been possibly deliberating on how or if she would dispose of Gannon's phone after she murdered him. Gannon's phone was found at the residence, so Leticia may not have gotten rid of it for fear it might be traceable. The Nissan returned back to the Stauch's home around 2:20 in the afternoon. Leticia exited the vehicle and entered the home, but Gannon was not seen on the video. Leticia had been without her phone all day, a phone that she was typically constantly on, yet her screen wasn't unlocked for about 25 minutes after arriving back at the house. Gannon's little sister, Lana, got home from school that afternoon shortly after 3 o'clock. Lana stated that when she went inside, Leticia told her that Gannon was asleep in her bed and that she couldn't see him. She then told Lana to go outside and play. Because of this, it's believed that Gannon was likely deceased, and Tisha was cleaning up blood in the home. Around 3:55 p.m., Al sent his son another text saying, "Hey, buddy." Sadly, Gannon never got to see this text from his dad, as the message wasn't read until 6:40 p.m. Leticia's daughter, Harley, arrived home in her white Volkswagen Jetta around 4:40 p.m. after working all day and picked up Lana. About 10 minutes later, Tisha sent Harley a text asking her to pick up carpet cleaner, trash bags, and baking soda, which Harley did. These items were likely purchased to clean up the murder scene inside the home. As of the date of Letecia Stauch's arrest affidavit on February 28, 2020, a full month after Gannon's disappearance, Harley had refused to speak with investigators. At around 6:55 on the evening of January 27, 2020, Gannon Stauch was reported missing after he allegedly failed to return home from a friend's house. His stepmother, Leticia, claimed that she had last seen Gannon when he left their home to go to his friend's house. She said he left around 3:15 p.m. and was supposed to have returned home about an hour prior to her 911 call, but that she had been unable to locate him. Her story would change dramatically over the next few days. Leticia was unable to provide the actual location of the homes she went to, the names of Gannon's friends that he was supposed to be playing with, or the names of those friends' parents. What began as a missing child investigation would soon develop into one of murder. El Paso County Sheriff's Office responded to the home at 10:09 p.m. on January 27, 2020. When they arrived, Tisha's Volkswagen Tiguan was backed into the garage. Responding officers searched Gannon's bedroom and did a limited search of the residence and took a report from Leticia. A missing person investigation was initiated, and in the coming days, developed into a murder investigation. The following morning, on January 28th, Gannon's father, Al, flew home, and Leticia picked him up at the Colorado Springs airport in a rented, yes, you heard that right, Tisha rented a 2019 Kia Rio just prior to picking her husband up. Leticia and Al drove back to their residence together. So, why did Tisha feel compelled to rent a vehicle that morning? There was no evidence that the Tiguan was not mechanically functioning or any reason why it couldn't be physically driven. In fact, unbeknownst to her husband and investigators, the Tiguan remained at the airport in the short-term parking lot till around 6 p.m. that evening. When questioned by Al about why she was driving a rental-car, Leticia allegedly responded that she was concerned about putting miles on her Tiguan. During the time period that Leticia had the Kia, she would not provide its location, and Mr. Stauch never saw the car. Tisha had also told Al another story, that her Tiguan was near the French elementary school. Around 7 p.m. on the 28th, Leticia returned the rental car and got into her Tiguan, heading to Falcon. During this time, she was sending messages to her daughter and to Al, along with searching the web. Leticia also took numerous routes that would relate to the search efforts. Around 10:15 p.m., Stauch stopped near the shops at Briargate Starbucks for about 55 minutes and connected to a Wi-Fi network. At about 10:50 p.m., the Tiguan and Leticia got back on I-25 and went to a Massage Envy location near Powers Boulevard. This is where Harley worked at the time. During this time, Leticia was searching the internet for Amber Alerts and checking the Ring doorbell camera video while connected to the Wi-Fi at the massage parlor parking lot. Harley, however, was not at work at the time and later picked up Leticia in her own car at the parking lot. The Tiguan stayed in the parking lot overnight, and the Jetta got back to the Stauch home around 1:23 a.m. Leticia's phone wasn't taken off airplane mode until January 29th. That same day, January 29th, and 2 days after Gannon went missing, Leticia was supposed to meet with investigators at 10 a.m. in Colorado Springs. When she arrived, 2 hours late, around noon, she was driving the Volkswagen Tiguan. Investigators noted that the car appeared to be wet and recently cleaned. Sure enough, they later discovered video from a car wash nearby, showing what appeared to be a car consistent with Ticia's just about 30 minutes prior to her showing up for the interview. Up until this point, Leticia had spoke with investigators over the phone, but avoided any one-on-ones with them, did not want them going to her home, and was difficult at best to track down. For the interview, Leticia brought with her several pieces of notebook paper that contained notes she had written down. During the interview, she referred to her notes and asked investigators if she could just read her notes. It was at this point that Leticia drastically departed from her initial statements to law enforcement regarding the report of Gannon's disappearance. This time, Leticia said she had been held at gunpoint by a Hispanic male she knew as Eduardo, and that after he was finished with her, he abducted Gannon. In Leticia's story, she met a man named Eduardo on January 26, 2020, the day before Gannon went missing. She described him as a Hispanic male with brown hair and brown eyes, but couldn't provide any specific identifying information. She told investigators that Gannon had knocked over a candle on Sunday, causing the carpet to burn. After that incident, she drove around the neighborhood where residential construction was taking place. She met Eduardo, who was working on a house, and asked if he would repair the carpet in her home. Eduardo agreed, and Leticia provided him the garage door code, and they agreed he would repair the carpet while she was shopping the next day. Speaking of the candle incident, Leticia video recorded what happened the night before, when she alleges Gannon knocked over the candle. The audio is quite disturbing. Let's listen.
I'm just freaked out, okay? Are you sure you didn't do it on purpose?
He did it.
Okay, you promise. You promise.
On purpose.
Pinky promise.
Pinky.
Okay, all right. So listen. We're gonna have to sell stuff to fix it. Okay. So we figure out what we gotta sell. We can sell the sofa. We can sell whatever, because we gotta get it fixed. So, lady, don't be mad at us and kick us out of the house. Okay? You got it?
Leticia said she arrived home around 2:30 on the afternoon of January 27th. She immediately disarmed her security system and went to the basement. She said that Eduardo was waiting in the basement, attacked her, and pointed a gun at her. Leticia then claimed that after Eduardo held her at gunpoint, he allowed her to go upstairs to greet her stepdaughter, Lana, who had just arrived home from school. Leticia said he sent Lana outside to ride her bike, then returned to the basement where Eduardo penetrated her against her will between 3:30 and 4:30 p.m. During this period, she believed she had hit her head and may have blacked out. Investigators noted that there were no injuries on Leticia's head during their interview with her. Making her story even more ludicrous, Leticia told investigators that during the attack, Gannon jumped on Eduardo's back, and Eduardo was able to throw Gannon off his back and across the room. After Eduardo had finished, he had the gun held to Gannon and demanded a suitcase. Leticia provided him with a brown suitcase and a cardboard box. Eduardo then attempted to sexually assault her again, but she hit her head and once again blacked out. Leticia stated that she tried to fight off his attacks, but was unsuccessful. Leticia said that she then cleaned up the area where the alleged attack happened. She straightened up signs of disturbances in Gannon's room and cleaned up the utility room. Leticia didn't call 911 about the home invasion, rape, and kidnapping of their child. In fact, she didn't mention any of this for 2 days after Gannon had been missing. Investigators offered Leticia the opportunity to have a sexual assault nurse examiner conduct a forensics examination at a local hospital. Ultimately, Leticia did not want to have the exam completed. When given the opportunity to provide investigators with evidence that would possibly identify Eduardo, Leticia refused to cooperate. Towards the end of the interview, Leticia said she wanted to leave. Investigators seized her telephone and detained her while they obtained a search warrant to obtain DNA collection. Leticia began stuffing tissues in her pants and said she was having chest pains and shortness of breath. Investigators immediately requested medical assistance and paramedics arrived. Accompanied by detectives, Leticia was taken to the hospital via ambulance. During the ambulance ride, Leticia was unresponsive to questions by medical personnel and seemed to have a miraculous recovery when they arrived at the hospital. Leticia continued evasive behavior at the hospital, but particularly after investigators told her that they were going to issue a search warrant to collect her DNA. Additionally, they confiscated her car and towed it to their evidence facility. Leticia never did consent to a SANE exam. Leticia was not in custody after the warrant was executed at the hospital and left the hospital without telling investigators. She also made a phone call from the hospital waiting room. Physical surveillance of the area showed an unknown person picking her up, and then she was reignited with her daughter several miles from the hospital. Investigators believed at this point that as pressure was increased on her, Leticia became more and more desperate to leave the hospital for fear of being caught in her own lies. Over the next few weeks, investigators searched the Stauch residence for biological evidence, amongst other. Gannon's remaining family members were still living in the residence at the time of the searches, and investigators didn't initially seal the residence off. Crime scene analysis from the Colorado Springs Metro Crime Lab responded to the residence and found traces of blood throughout the residence based on latent blood stain reagents tests. There was also visible blood in Gannon's bedroom, the garage, and other portions of the home. Specifically, on January 28th, a search was authorized by Al Stauch without the need for a search warrant. There, in Gannon's bedroom, in a corner of the room, investigators located an area where suspected blood had seeped through the carpet, through the pad, and stained the concrete. Furthermore, there was also blood stain and projected blood splatter located on the walls within this area. Indeed, over 50 droplets of suspected blood were found on the walls near Gannon's bed. Because of the way the Blue Star reagent reacted on the wall, it was expected that someone had attempted to clean it up. Trace evidence swabs from suspected blood were obtained from the electrical socket next to Gannon's bed. These swabs revealed that the blood was indeed Gannon's blood. The electrical socket also had evidence of streak marks, which are reasonably suspected to be from Leticia's attempt at cleaning. When investigators removed the outlet cover, a visible red stain was present, outlining its edges. The presence of that stain indicated that there was enough blood around the outlet cover to seep around its edges, leaving a visible outline. Gannon's mattress was also seized and contained a red stain consistent with blood in the same area as the stain on the carpet and the blood cast off on the walls. The stain on the mattress was swabbed, but were not tested with Blue Star reagent. It's important to note that when officers first responded to the 911 call on January 27, 2020, they did not notice the blood in Gannon's room. At this time, they were responding to a child that had left the home with permission and had not yet returned. Based on residual blood residue on the baseboards, an electrical outlet cover, and the blood that soaked through the carpet, detectives suspected that someone had attempted to clean up blood throughout the home, mainly in Gannon's bedroom. Because of the scene in Gannon's bedroom, it was then assumed that this was the location of Gannon's murder, and he was no longer just a missing child. On January 29th, with a warrant, investigators recovered a piece of carpet from the utility room with blood stains. Additionally, investigators found in the dishwasher multiple carpet brushes with suspected carpet fibers on them, and the dishwasher appeared to have been run. Investigators believed that these brushes had been used to clean up the crime scene. Investigators also took a size 8.5 Nike shoe that belonged to Leticia. On it, they found a blood stain on the outside sole that matched the DNA profile of Gannon Stauch. Furthermore, a DNA profile was obtained from a swab inside the shoe, which also matched the DNA profile for Leticia Stauch. Leticia Stauch asserted that her husband informed her about discovering blood stains in their home, although she refuted any involvement in Gannon's disappearance and explained that he had a habit of experiencing repetitive nosebleeds that necessitated regular cleaning. Additionally, she divulged that Gannon injured his foot in the garage a few days prior to his disappearance, emphasizing that the garage contained tools, wood, and woodworking equipment that could have caused the bloodstains if an accident had occurred. According to Crime Online, Al Stauch contacted his wife and inquired about a sizable blood puddle found inside Gannon's room. Leticia recounted that her husband was shown various locations of bloodstains in the house, including the garage. She attributed the presence of bloodstains in the garage to the possibility of accidents occurring frequently, such as nosebleeds, and stated that Gannon sometimes walked around with blood on his arm from nosebleeds. Leticia also stated that Al told her that a bloody 2x4 board and Gannon's sock were discovered in the woods near Douglas County. Leticia clarified that her family frequently transferred unused boards from their garage to the pickup truck as remnants from her husband's woodworking pastime, and she suggested that several accidents in the garage could have resulted in a bloodied board. When asked how the board and Gannon's sock ended up in the woods, Leticia speculated that items had previously flown out of the truck while she was driving and suggested that the same thing may have happened to the board or Gannon's sock. Leticia refuted having been informed by law enforcement about the wood or sock, asserting that they had not contacted her. Investigators applied for and were granted a search warrant for Leticia's cell phone. Through the physical downloads of the phone, they learned that Leticia had lied to her employer, her husband, her friends, her daughter, and the children's babysitter. For example, on January 28th, Leticia had a conversation with the children's babysitter, saying that he had to go to the doctor for his stomach that morning, when the babysitter stated that someone had posted that Gannon was not at school that day. There is no indication that Gannon went to a doctor that day, and Leticia never brought it up with investigators. Furthermore, in a text to a detective, Leticia attempts to explain the blood found in the basement and appears to have been referring to the candle incident the night before he went missing. She said, "When we came back inside from the smoke, there was blood on both of us. I didn't know what to do. I was scared I would get fussed at about it, and I didn't know if he should go to a doctor. I kept trying to add the candle thing, but Albert kept saying it was small and minor. I was scared the basement was smoky, and when I threw the covers on everything, we both had blood." She then goes on to tell the detective, "You don't understand how hard it is to be a stepmom." It's important to note that detectives never smelled smoke, and there was no evidence of any. In fact, they said it was a very pleasant smell, like coconuts. Investigators also recovered limited GPS and location data from Leticia's phone. There are crucial time periods, such as the evening on January 28th, that investigators were not able to recover location history because Leticia disconnected her phone from the network or turned her phone off. They did find, however, that Leticia stored notes within her iPhone. The majority of the notes contain normal information, such as usernames and passwords. However, there were several notes that appeared to reference her unhappiness in her marriage and shed some light on potential household instability. Leticia's internet activity between the dates of January 25th and 28th were also captured. Leticia viewed websites associated with searching for a job in states other than Colorado, such as Los Angeles or Orlando, Florida, Pensacola Beach, Florida, and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Leticia also viewed apartments and two-bedroom rental properties in Florida. The internet activity also captured the search for a rental car. Leticia used Google extensively, and her search history is important because the history suggests she might have been struggling as a step-parent, and additionally suggests she was not happily married to Mr. Stauch. While her search history alone does not provide motive to murder Gannon, it does shed light on her inquisitive thoughts of her position with the family, memorialized in Google's search engine. Investigators were also able to recover internet search history that was deleted from Leticia's phone. No time and date was associated with the data. Some of these searches were: "I feel like I'm just a nanny and not a stepmom. Husband uses me to babysit his kids. I'm just a glorified babysitter. Find a new husband," and so on. During the first 24 to 48 hours surrounding the disappearance of a child, it's reasonable that an assumingly innocent parent or step-parent would be contributing to search efforts and fully participating in the effort to recover the child. However, In the 24 to 48 hours surrounding Gannon's disappearance, Leticia rented a vehicle, turned her cell phone off for approximately 4 hours on the evening of January 28th, washed her Tiguan immediately before going to the sheriff's office for an interview, evaded law enforcement's attempt to conduct a more in-depth interview, and did not participate in the search for Gannon. On Tuesday, January 28th, Leticia instructed Harley to pull her car into the garage. It's suspected that that was to temporarily cover up any potential evidence left behind. Also on January 28th, investigators asked Leticia for Gannon's toothbrush to recover his DNA. Within minutes, Leticia did a search in her internet browser of "they're asking for her son's toothbrush," but said nothing is wrong. About 15 minutes later, Leticia has a text conversation with Al. She said, "Something isn't right. I think they are hiding something." To which Al responds, "Who? The police?" Leticia writes, "Yes, they asked for toothbrushes." Al says, "What do you think they're hiding?" Again, on January 28th at approximately 10:45 p.m., Leticia made a statement to investigators via text message. At the time of this statement, Gannon had been missing for approximately 27 hours, and Leticia believed she was a subject in his disappearance, without any prior prompting from law enforcement or notification of such. Leticia texted Detective Bethel saying, "What do you want from me? Because I have nothing. One of your very own leaked to me what you guys were doing. I did nothing and/or am being set up. I'm not really even sure, other than being told by another blue with El Paso. I was told I couldn't go home to sleep, and on top of that, men were sent to the home with a minor female, and she was forced to stay there, not to even leave for food. Every conversation that's said, even at this moment, I can hear inside. What do you want from me?" In which Detective Bethel simply responded with, "Come in to talk to me. I would just like information to find Gannon." After El Paso County Sheriff's Office seized Leticia's Volkswagen Tiguan on January 29th, she obtained a 2020 Nissan Altima. Investigators applied for and were granted a search warrant to install a GPS tracker on the vehicle. Investigators monitored this tracking device, which provided particularly useful information on January 31st, 2020. On Friday, January 31st, they believed that she moved Gannon's body again. This time, investigators say she used her aunt's rented Nissan Altima, since her Tiguan was now in custody. She was unaware that law enforcement had placed a tracker on the Altima. That Nissan Altima pinged near the 105 South Perry Park Road area, the same location that Leticia was on the 28th around 9:15 p.m., the same area that searchers would later locate a piece of particle board with Gannon's blood on it on February 15th. The fact that Leticia went back to that area is significant, as investigators have not uncovered any evidence that Leticia has family or friends that live in the area, or any other legitimate reason for her presence in that area, other than to dispose of incriminating evidence. One theory investigators have for Leticia returning to this area is that she originally disposed of Gannon's remains at nighttime and was likely nervous about the location she had chosen and may not have remembered exactly where she dumped Gannon's remains. Investigators believe that on January 31st, she went back to the area to view it while sunlight was available, to ensure no evidence was visible from the road, to ensure his remains were adequately covered to prevent detection, and to see if any law enforcement was in the area. On Friday, February 1st, Leticia rented a budget rental van and also purchased a Verizon cell phone. They believe her and Harley then drove this rental van to Pensacola, Florida, where she dropped off Gannon's body at a bridge. They then drove on to Orlando, Florida for some reason, and then continued to South Carolina. Also on Friday, Leticia gave her first and very strange media
Stauch,
interview.
Which is Gannon's stepmother.
You've been a part of the investigation since the very first time. You were the last person to see him. Is that right?
Correct.
What did you see when you last saw him?
Well, I'm not allowed to talk about anything with the case. I would more so be willing to talk about how the community needs to have faith and continue to work together and not make these false accusations, like the things that have been said that I've disappeared from the community. I haven't been there to help, but there's lots of reasons behind that. Two, my husband's ex-wife is living in our home, and of course I'm not coming home to do these things and to help with the family when I was kind of like told I couldn't. And then many other things that happened with the El Paso County Police Department, you know, and in doing the investigation I was told I wasn't complying. And could I elaborate on that?
Please do.
Yes, so I asked for an attorney during the interview, and I was denied that by them. I was held because they were blocking the door, and I was told I couldn't leave, and that if I would have touched them, they would have probably, you know, said I still wasn't complying, or said I was, you know, trying to run away or something. But during the interview, I asked several times, could I stop the interview? Could I get an attorney? Could I stop the interview? Could I get an attorney? I was denied. I was told I couldn't get nothing to drink. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I mean, it was continuously that my constitutional rights were violated.
And that's why you say that they said then you weren't cooperating with the investigation.
That's why they said I wasn't cooperating at that time, correct. I took care of Gannon for the last 2 years in our home because his mother didn't want to do it. And I would never, never, ever hurt this child. And I know there's some questions out there about, okay, so tell me what happens. That's up to the investigations when they end up letting you guys know, but I've cooperated with them, even to the point that we were held with a gun, and my daughter, a 17-year-old who serves our country in the United States Air Force, who has never committed a crime or done anything wrong in her life, was put in handcuffs over the keys that was in her purse. The rumors have gotten so bad. I pretty much have been told at least 10 different ways that these people have these conspiracy theories. I guess they watch a lot of law shows, and maybe they have all these theories on how Gannon is dead, and that's what they're saying. So I'm like, why are you saying Gannon is dead? He is not dead. We are going to find Gannon, and that's the main goal that we all have, my family has. Just because you haven't seen us, we have that same goal, and we've been out searching. My aunt has been out searching. My family has been out searching. We all have been doing that together so that we could protect each other. You know, I'm just ready for Gannon to come home. Most importantly, for him to see his family. But second, I am going to be so ecstatic when I'm able to say to people that I hope they have a really sincere apology for all these theories that have came out online, for all the things they said that I have done or people have done. And I just want everyone to know that we're going to find Gannon. And I love him so much. I've helped taking care of him for so long.
Can you talk to me a little bit about him? I don't know him.
Gannon is so kind, and he loves to play video games. That's one of his favorite things. He loves Sonic and Mario, and you know, he's always helpful, and he was always so helpful with the dogs around the house, and we have 2 little cute dogs, and he was always like a person I could say, Gannon, can you go do this? And he would do it right away. You know, sometimes with kids we have to remind them and things like that, and that's okay, but he was so sweet and able to help anyone. He could notice when you're sick and say, are you okay? And such a kind heart. I need Harley, because they want you to verify was Gannon at home after the hike. Because you didn't go to the hike, but you came home from work. Do you want me to just say yes? No, just answer the question. Yes, you came home from work, and you can verify Gannon was at home. Yeah.
Sure.
Does she need to hold this?
No.
Yes, so I came home later that evening. I was at work, and I can verify that he was there that night.
So there was a hike that you guys went on, but then you guys came home.
Yes.
Where'd you guys go hiking?
Garden of the Gods.
Oh, that's okay. I guess when.
And then we ate Burger King afterwards, so, you know. That my main thing is I would never want someone to think that I would hurt Gannon or any of the children in our home, because that's just not the case. I've spent my whole entire life working so hard in education. The message for Gannon I have is, Gannon, when you get here, you'll be able to truly tell what happened. And then I really hope I get a sincere apology from everyone who has made all those things, especially from my husband. We just wanted to add a message to Gannon from my family, is that we love you and miss you, and we hope that you come home soon. And Gannon, I can't wait till you can come home and let everyone know that you're okay. We love you.
On Tuesday, February 4th, 2020, just after midnight, Leticia and Harley arrived in Pensacola and rented a room at a Candlewood Suites, approximately 1.8 miles from the bridge location. It is believed this is where she dropped Gannon's body off in the very early morning hours. On February 12th, Leticia released a statement to the press. This is what she had to say at that time. First and foremost, I would like to thank all agencies, volunteers, and community members who are working diligently and praying endlessly to bring Gannon home safe. Thank you to my husband who has stayed strong through this and protected our family to the best of his ability and our immediate and extended family members throughout the East Coast. To Gannon, please come home soon because your daddy is waiting to watch the new Sonic movie that comes out this week, and the cool shirt I got you to wear to the theater is in your closet. Social media has been devastating from the harsh comments, speculations, threats, cyberbullying, etc. It has been a challenge when people are trying to run you off the road, waiting outside your hotel, threatening to kill you, etc. I encourage the sheriff's office to take down those pages that promote negative behavior and violence. Let's do what Gannon would do. Be kind to one another. We all have engaged in something crazy online at some point, but Gannon would want everyone to get along and to focus on finding him. I know that many people have kids and are invested in this because it hits close to home for them. I would like to think that overall most people are genuine and want to do everything in their power to find G. With that being said, please take a step back for a moment and let me explain to you a few details that were not released. For example, just like the video that was leaked, there are additional details that were hidden due to 1. The department doing its job, 2. The effects of social media, and how some individuals would criticize or hinder the investigation. I chose to listen. I didn't leak videos or information. But as at this time, it's getting later in the process, and we just want Gannon home. I feel the need to fill in some gaps. Now let me stress this. Police have known since the first interview. Saturday night, G was helping me unload in the garage and cut his foot because there were a lot of tools because Albert does woodworking. He sat on the edge of the car and we bandaged it up. He was good to go. He always loves helping his dad in the garage build things like his Lego tables and the flower pot they built for me as a gift. After this, I noticed G kept going to the side of the house. He told me he was checking to see if the gate was locked because he was the only one with a gate key. Made him proud to be the man of the house while Albert was away. Fast forward, we did a hike on Sunday, cleared, and shopping on Monday, cleared as well for him getting out of the other side. Please don't think for a second that there isn't enough technology to determine shadows and movement around the truck. There was also proof from my phone that we had taken a selfie in the truck in our driveway that was time-stamped. We always send pictures to Albert when we are out and about or when he is away. That can be scanned for actual time verification. Last, from day one, the sheriff's office has known a description of the person/friend who Gannon left with. I explained to them and provided evidence. They had information about G having the key to go out the side gate. Last, they have more in-depth details that go along with this, pointing to who sent the person or why he may have come. Again, I repeat, they have had this initially, and I was asked to keep quiet about it so they could have the best shot at doing their job and bringing G home. The last thing that they needed was a hindrance to their investigation. I encourage you to think of any suspicious cars that may have been in the area watching a few days prior and keep praying for G. Leticia Stauch. Over this time period, investigators conducted several consensually monitored telephone calls with Mr. Stauch. Specifically, Mr. Stauch, at the direction of law enforcement, communicated with Leticia via telephone and email. In these conversations, and even prior, Leticia never admitted to killing Gannon. The majority of the conversations between Leticia and Al began around February 13, 2020, and over several days, Leticia's story continued to change. During a phone call on February 13th, Leticia stated that Gannon was burned by a candle to the point that his skin bubbled, and that Gannon peeled the burns off and wiped blood on his bedroom wall. Now, Mr. Stauch did not ask about blood on the walls during the conversation, and it's important to know that Leticia, nor the press, had been made aware of the location of any blood evidence. Details regarding Gannon's murder were being held very close throughout the investigation. On February 14th, Leticia had an additional conversation with Al and provided 4 additional versions of Gannon's disappearance. Story number 1. When the El Paso Sheriff's Office came to the house on January 27th, the abductor was still in the residence, and that she tried to signal to the sheriff's deputies that there was someone in there. It should be noted that deputies checked the entire residence when looking for Gannon, and no additional person was located during that search. Story number 2. She was raped by Quincy Brown at her residence, and Brown abducted Gannon. She knew Brown's identity because she saw a paper and his identification card fell out of his pocket that had his name on it. Leticia sent a photograph of Quincy Brown to Mr. Stauch via text message. Story number 3. Quincy Brown followed her from Petco and at some point was laying in the middle of the road in front of her car. When Leticia stopped to avoid running over the man, he jumped in her car and made her take him to her home. Story number 4. Leticia and Gannon were near County Line Road and Highway 105 in northern El Paso County on January 27th. Gannon was riding a bicycle in that area and fell off, hit his head, and was then abducted by Quincy Brown. In this version of events, Quincy Brown was driven by a man named Terrence. The February 14th story, number 4, has several interesting considerations. During the period of February 12th through the 14th, it was public knowledge by virtue of media coverage that investigators were searching for Gannon in the area of 105 Highway and South Perry Park Road in southern Douglas County, near the El Paso County line. Leticia brought this location up on her own, without prompt during a conversation, and provided an alibi for why she was in that area. Leticia was adamant that investigators' efforts to search for Gannon in that area would be futile. This area turned out to be significant based on the Tiguan's location on January 28th and that Gannon's blood was found in the area. Leticia also drove through the area in her Nissan Altima rental on January 31st. Based on data recovered from the Tiguan, Leticia was likely in the area of Highway 105 and South Perry Park Road on the evening of January 28th, and that Gannon's remains were dumped in the vicinity of that area. Investigators were starting to realize that Leticia's story was laying the foundation for a reason why Gannon may be located with head trauma. On February 15th, Leticia provided additional conflicting stories to Mr. Stauch, including that the story she told Albert about Gannon falling off his bike was a lie, and that she told it because she believed that's what he wanted to hear. She also stated that the blood in the corner of Gannon's room was a combination of hers and Gannon's. In this explanation, she stated that the abductor penetrated both her and Gannon with an object. Additionally, she was tied up at some point in the abduction, and the abductor was still present during the sheriff's office visit that night that she reported Gannon missing. Now, Leticia's lies weren't just for Al and the police. On February 16th, Leticia told a female, believed to be Tila Cummings, that she had been giving Al numerous false stories because she knew he wouldn't believe anything she said anyway. On a February 17th call, Leticia told a female that she was thinking about flying out to Colorado to take a lie detector test to prove her innocence. During that call, she stated, "They still think I'm in Colorado." On another call later that day, Leticia told an unknown female that she's going to take a lie detector test, but that the test wouldn't be admissible in court and no law enforcement would be present. On a February 18th call, Leticia made a phone call that investigators learned was the number of fakepolygraph.com. During that call, Leticia stated she never got confirmation for a test she paid for. Leticia provided the spelling of her name, and before disconnecting the call, the unknown male said he would resend the results to her email. About an hour later, Leticia again called fakepolygraph.com. During this call, Leticia inquired about an email she received. The unknown male stated that her report was blocked by management based on the content of the questions, and stated that with any illegal activities, they reserve the right to not send the report. Leticia's response was the following: Leticia, what do you do now? Just delete it and go on about life and keep the money? Male, yes, we do indeed. Leticia, okay, I gotcha. Thank you, goodbye. FakePolygraph.com provided investigators with the questions and answers that Leticia Stauch had provided them. Leticia provided the following questions and the answers that were supposed to be truthful. Number 1, do you intend to answer these questions regarding your stepson truthfully? She responded yes. 2, is your birthday August 4th, 1983? Yes. Number 3, did you participate in any way in causing harm to your stepson? No. Did your stepson return with you to your home? Yes. Did you participate in any way in causing the death of your stepson? No. If Leticia had been honest up until this point, why would she need to go through a fake polygraph? On March 2nd, 2020, at approximately 8:04 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, El Paso County Sheriff's Office detectives, FBI agents, and members from the El Paso County 4th Judicial District Attorney's Office arrested Letecia Stauch in Horry County, South Carolina, on the charges of murder in the first degree on a child under the age of 12, child abuse resulting in death, tampering with a deceased human body, and tampering with physical evidence. She was extradited from South Carolina to Colorado and was formally charged with the murder of the death of her stepson, but not without drama. During the transport, Leticia managed to slip out of her handcuffs, but then was later taken on to Colorado. And at this time, keep in mind, Gannon's body had yet to be found. Sadly, on March 17, 2020, Gannon Stauch's body was discovered by workers under Escambia River Bridge near Pace, Florida.
The Gannon Stauch case, the 11-year-old boy's body believed to have been found in Florida. His stepmom reported him missing back in January, and as News 5's Colette Bordelon explains, she is now facing 9 new charges accused of his murder.
We met with the family earlier today, and obviously they're distraught with this information. They were still holding out hope that Gannon would come home alive despite the original charges that we filed in this case.
During her preliminary hearing on September 9, 2021, witnesses provided testimony that tied together the events that led to Leticia disposing of Gannon's body. Jason Yoder, a sergeant that was on duty the morning of the 17th when workers on Escambia River Bridge discovered a suitcase, was the first witness to testify. He stated on record that workers, after discovering the suitcase, dumped out all of its contents and found the body of a small child, wrapped in blankets next to a pillow, which they later would discover matched the bedding from his bedroom, thanks to photos Leticia had taken the morning she allegedly murdered him. Yoder testified that there's an emergency pull-out area from the road near the bridge, and you could see where the suitcase was thrown from the pull-out area. Yoder said it was consistent with someone dropping a suitcase off the bridge. When asked to describe the body, Yoder said it was severely decomposed, fully clothed, wrapped in blankets, and in the fetal position. He also said that the body had a fractured skull with a gunshot wound in its jaw, sharp force injuries in his chest and back, defensive wounds to his hands, and cuts on his arms and hands. Additionally, Yoder testified that there was a pillow in the suitcase that had 2 holes in it, and it appeared as though the bullets had entered the pillow in 2 places. Yoder said the gunshot wound would have been fatal on its own. He said the same thing about the blunt force trauma to the skull. Yoder also testified that the damage to Gannon's skull could have been caused by the suitcase being dropped about 80 to 100 feet from the bridge. Florida law enforcement then began looking locally for any missing child that would fit, but they found no matches. They then went on a national database where they discovered a flyer for Gannon Stauch and made the connection that it could be him. Florida officials waited until they got the autopsy results back to call El Paso County Sheriff's Office. Autopsy results showed that Gannon's cause of death was a gunshot wound in the jaw and blunt trauma to the head. He had a cracked skull, 18 lacerations on his body that included 2 stab wounds. The body had been in a suitcase for over a month. Investigators also showed photos of the master bedroom of the Stauch home, in which they found a gun on top of the dresser next to a teddy bear and a photo of Gannon Stauch. DNA had been taken from the trigger guard and the back strap. The DNA found matched that of Leticia Stauch. They believe this is the murder weapon they had been looking for. During her stay at the El Paso County Jail, Leticia planned another escape. According to the probable cause affidavit, Leticia allegedly secretly slipped notes to the other inmate asking for her help in escaping from the jail. Stauch, who has no regular contact with the other inmates incarcerated there, allegedly sneaked the notes through the crack beneath the other inmate's cell door. Leticia allegedly included notes with drawings and other plans, as well as with a key request that the other inmate somehow provide her with the broken end of a broom. The other inmate, according to the affidavit, had regular access to a broom every day during her time out of her cell. Stauch allegedly wrote in one of the notes that she needed the broom piece to smash open her cell window, noting she had already taken measurements of the window and believed she could fit her body through it. One of the notes Leticia wrote references a bank account containing $75,000 set up to fund her defense, which she explained in the note she'd much rather use to survive, if you know what I mean. In the letter, she allegedly assures the other inmate, "You have my word to make sure we are MIA. I got us covered." The affidavit alleges the prison break was planned for early May 2020. The other inmate came forward with the notes, telling investigators she wanted no part of Stauch's alleged plan. Another one of the letters Stauch allegedly wrote she was dead serious about the plan. A note recovered from Stauch's cell, allegedly intended for her daughter, cautioned that if something comes up on the news, like she is no longer in jail or is missing, to not be afraid. The author wrote for this person to just keep normal and focused, underlining these comments. She wrote for this person to trust her on this, and underlined that. Leticia Stauch has been found sane and competent to face the charges of murdering her 11-year-old stepson, Gannon Stauch. After multiple delays, 3 years later, Gannon and his family will hopefully get the justice that they so desperately deserve. The jury trial process is expected to start on March 20th, 2023, with an estimated 2 weeks of jury selection and an expected start of evidence presentation no later than April 3rd, and then about 6 weeks for the presentation of the case. Judge Greg Warner believes the biggest obstacle in the jury selection process will be jurors claiming hardship for being involved in such a long case, as well as juror concerns about the nature of the case and the age of the victim. Concerns about pretrial publicity were considered secondary, as the court does not expect to find people who have never heard about the case, but is confident that they will find jurors that can focus on the facts before them. During the jury selection, only 2 members of the press, 1 print and 1 electronic, will be allowed in the courtroom, and only audio recording will be allowed during the process. As of the date this video was released, the trial of the state of Colorado versus Letecia Stauch will be live streamed through the court's website only.
Once I was 7 years old, my mama told me, go make yourself some friends or you'll be lonely. Once I was 7 years old. It was a big, big world, but we thought we were bigger, pushing each other to the limits we were learning.
Mwah. Mwah. Love you. Love you.